What's good, y'all? Welcome to another Anything by Mansa Cannon. I'm Mansa, and today I have my good friend Angelica Bonds on. This woman is a woman I've known for years now. She was a part of the Community Involvement Chair and Community Involvement Committee with Urban League Young Professionals of Greater Southwestern, and how she was one of my first committee members, and I greatly appreciate her. She has been one of the people I could call on in some of the hardest of times. And what else times? That's when you're trying to get a job and trying to get a new bag where you need your resume checked. And you know that these HR people always like their resume to look a certain type of way. So you need to call on one to make sure that they can lay their eyes on it and give you some feedback. And she's been one of my key go-to people. She's also been a person that was dynamic and supportive of an idea that I had when I was president, which was, hey, we want to make people more aware of the opportunities that are out there, and I need your assistance with that. And I got coached up by her for what the committee could look like, and also received her feedback. Today, we're going to dive into the HR field. We're going to learn how a person becomes an HR representative, as well as what does that entail. And of course, she's currently in a new role where she's diversity and inclusion, and we need to learn a little bit more about that as well. That is clearly a lot of things that are going on in this world, and several things that are going to impact you in every job, which is HR. So without further ado, what's up, Angelica? How you doing?
Hi, Mario. I'm well. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm wonderful. I'm so happy to have you on, and I appreciate you as always. But before we get to anything else, we have to answer the most important question, which allows me to interview you, which is, do you like your job?
I love my job. I was a resident advisor at Central State, where I attended college, and I feel resident advisors are pretty much the campus HR. So I've always just been type of person that's kind of like helping people get through whatever stage in their life, whether it's in the workplace or whether it's on campus, being a resource for uh, directing people the best way to make an enjoyable experience is something that I have distinct pleasure in. So I really do enjoy my job. Yes.
Okay. Well, before we dive into where you currently are, we need to take some steps back. What was that first role, that first position, that first dream job that you wanted as a child? And by the way, it can be a ridiculous thing. It doesn't have to be something that's legit.
And ridiculous it would be. I wanted to be Britney Spears public relations specialist because she was ruining her career. And I was a Britney Spears fan. I loved her music. And I thought, well, she wasn't ruining her career. I think a lot of stuff was happening to her, but I wanted to help her with her image. So that's kind of why I went into business and marketing in particular for college.
I still don't understand why that was ridiculous, because there's somebody that does it. That's a PR person, right? That's the public relations.
Yeah, I think just my driver to get to public relations, like because I was just a fan of Britney Spears so much, that's the ridiculous part. I didn't have a distinct passion for public relations. I just had a passion for her to continue making music.
Okay, so. Okay. Well, you should have tried. Maybe you should have been still on the charts right now.
Listen, I'm pretty sure a Billboard something.
Yeah. All right. So just out of curiosity, was there something, because even to think I want to be in PR, or just to be able to think that that is a position that you can hold, what was going on in your upbringing that may have even made you aware of that type of opportunity? Because I wouldn't even have thought about that as a child.
So in high school, that's a really good question. In high school, I was part of DECA, which is a business program. They're in quite a bit of high schools nationwide, where you are kind of like a student that focuses on business aspects. And you had a lot of projects and stuff like that that were surrounding business and finance and things like that. So public relations was kind of one of those business cases that we had to handle in the class. And I enjoyed, just the aspect of being part of the team that helps the perception or the projection of a person or a company be positive. So if there are some negative things happening, when I say business cases, we were given business cases to figure out a problem. And, there was probably I'm sure, I can't remember or recall 100%, but there was probably a public relations problem that we had to solve. And, I was like, oh, I'm sold. I like this kind of aspect. So that's kind of what got me into that area.
Okay.
DECA.
And this was in high school.
Yes.
Do you
Mhm.
know what DECA stands for?
I don't, and I should because it is an abbreviation or not
Well,
abbreviation, acronym. Or is it? Yeah, it's an acronym. So I don't know.
well, this is what DECA stands for. It's right on the screen now. That's what's TV
Yay!
magic. You can put anything on the screen. All right. So, as we're looking to go into college from high school, what was your thought process?
Just getting there. So I'm a first generation college graduate, and in my household, my parents were hardworking, individuals. They did what they needed to do to keep us fed and have clothes on our backs. But college was not necessarily a common thread, as it is probably now in more households. Or so it wasn't a lot of like, oh, these are all the options. We have a funding saved for you for college. Um, the biggest thing I was thinking about is like, okay, I have to pay for this by myself. That means loans. That means all of these different types of things. So my thoughts really were just making it in there and also just like getting out of there. So like my dad started college, but he didn't finish. My mom has an associate's degree, but or she not associate's degree. But I would be the first bachelor's degree graduate in my household. So it was just concerns about finance, to be honest. So that was really my biggest thought process.
Okay. Okay. What did your parents do?
So my dad held a number of factory jobs, and my mom was a phlebotomist, but now she's still kind of in the medical field, being kind of desk representative for a primary care office. So
How many siblings did you have?
I have two older sisters and a younger brother.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's a busy household. That's a busy household.
It is. It truly is.
So we're in college, right? What was that first major, or did you ever switch majors, or did you have a consistent major the whole time?
I had a consistent major the whole time. It's always been business with a bachelor's of science in business marketing. So yeah, it's been that since day one. That was
Okay.
the DECA road into
Yeah.
college.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And you knew what you wanted to do with business? Because I know the PR was a little bit in the thought process. You switched to HR, but I feel like when you take on business, you learn so many different avenues that you
Mhm.
can take with that. So, was there any exploratory opportunities for you in the process?
Um, yeah, I would say there were. I knew I just wanted to be somewhere in marketing or advertising kind of space. That's where I originally started off. I never it's very interesting because I probably was more ignorant about the possibilities within business, more ignorant than understanding like what my avenues were. It is such a broad major to where like you can venture out into so many different things. It's almost like an MBA too. Like if you could just kind of stretch it in multiple different ways. But I don't think I was well equipped to know all of the different areas I was going into. But or that I could go into, but marketing has always just been something that I had interest in.
Okay. Okay. We're in college. Did you have any organizations that you participated in? Like, was there a crossover from DECA in high school into college?
I did. I was the marketing club president for a year, and I was part of on the marketing club since my freshman year. So that was the most major related organization I was part of. So yeah.
Why didn't you go into marketing? Because you see you're a very sunny and energy filled person. I can only imagine you in branding and helping build up a company and keeping them on brand. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously that's the HR in you where you keeping everything tight as well. So I can see you in HR, but I'm just curious, having been a part of an organization for pretty much your entire college career, why wouldn't you go into marketing?
That's a good question too. I think when I got out of college, because again, business has so many different opportunities. Um, it's not that I didn't try to get into marketing. I just think it didn't my cards didn't play that way. So I
Mhm.
definitely was trying to look into branding and marketing and advertising and like graphic design and things like that. But I just don't think my hand led me there. My hand led me more so connected to people. So that's kind of where that came from, I'm sure.
Okay. Did you have any opportunities in college to do co-op or internships or anything like that that would guide you into your next roles?
I did. So I was selected to be part of uh, from our marketing team. I was selected to be part of a group that worked with a sports league here to help them with marketing and kind of do some projects there. And then after that, I was brought on as a marketing intern for an organization that was leading that project with the sports team. So um, I was very blessed to have an internship. I think there's a lot of people, unfortunately, who do not have internships. I think that's a really great kind of segue into the workplace. So, but yeah, I was able to work on a couple of marketing focused internships. So it gave me a quick preview of what marketing will look like, and just gave me some exposure to the workplace. So yeah.
Okay. When you were in college, was there any particular courses that you took that stood out the most? I ask this because it might even be something that a kid that's not going to take on business or an adult that's not going to take on business may want to go ahead and look into get involved in. Because I didn't do any type of business degrees. And I want to be very clear that what I suggest now, I did not follow this because no one was there to tell me. But now in hindsight, I would strongly advise anybody who's not going to major in to at least minor in business,
Yeah.
finance, marketing, tech. One of these areas, I know tech is a special, but frankly, when it comes to the business aspects, any job, any company that you go inside of, they're going to have some level of need for that, which means you're always going to have an opportunity for employment. So I'm just
Right.
curious to know, was there any actual business course or anything that stood out in your college experience that really helped you become a professional?
Um, so I loved our marketing course, of course. I think even seeing past business marketing projects, like even to know how to market yourself as a potential candidate for whatever, or public speaking and things of that nature. I just think that there is some very huge value in understanding the structure of marketing because it can be transferable as just an individual. And I also, there was an etiquette class we actually had, which, typically that happens in high school, but our etiquette class was an extension. It was even further on from probably what you learned in high school, just etiquette, business etiquette. So, different aspects of that that I think everyone will experience. Like some of the like marketing, again, like you can make it transferable into your own world, but that takes a requirement of open-mindedness of what you're learning. So it can transfer. Etiquette, business etiquette is something that everybody literally needs to understand from an interview perspective, from a meeting perspective, from a leadership perspective. So those would probably be the two classes that stuck out to me and I think would be more universal for everyone.
When you mentioned your internship, was it paid?
Yep.
How much?
So I the sports support kind of the sport project was not paid, but when I was hired on as an intern with the company, I think I made $16 an hour, which at that time was decent money. Right, and right now, you know, I've seen our internships be anywhere from like 19 to 22, and this happened back in like 2010 or 2009. So to have been making $16 at that time was decent money when considering what we're paying now for interns. But it was about 1650.
Was this a summer internship or was this during school?
It was a summer internship. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So you were able to work full time then.
Yes. I think it was a part-time internship where I had a couple of days in.
Hmm.
Um, like, yeah, I don't think it was a full-time.
Okay.
That's budget purposes, probably.
All right. So you're graduating. How did you transition into professional life?
I I mm, transitioning into professional life wasn't necessarily difficult for me because I had to remain professional as a resident advisor. So it was pretty easy for me to understand, like, there's just things that I can and cannot do. There's ways I need to operate myself when, I'm conducting business. So I really, really was appreciative of that experience that I had as a resident advisor because I think I had a leg up, because I was already in the mindset of working. Um, and how I kind of got into just work in general. I had to start off as a contractor. Like I didn't have like jobs lined up like some people do. Like, oh, this company wants me. I got this offer, or whatever. I had to really grind to get to where I am today. But I took on a contract immediately that was more so like very administrative paperwork, no people contact or anything of that nature. But it was really good. Um, it's a good company that I was working for. I was making decent money, so I basically had to do what I needed to do.
What was that role?
I have no idea what the title of that role was.
You
I,
forgot the time your
I
first job?
forgot. Geez, that was like almost 10 years ago. Like that was wild. But I mean, it was literally probably like only for 6 months. So that's why it was kind of like in it was significant, but not as significant as my other experiences. But it was like kind of like a finance loan officer assistant role, contract role, where I was helping loan officers process uh, the back end of a loan. So getting paperwork together, sending the paperwork, checking the paperwork, following up with the customers if I need to, things like that. So that's
That's not administrative. It sounds very close to like administration.
yeah, no, that's what I said. It's mostly like very administrative heavy.
Okay, okay.
Mhm.
And what was the first role that you took on going into after you left your contract job, and how did you make that transition? Because let's be clear, a contract job, a contract position is one that has a end date and expiration on your employment. So you have to have a plan and foresight in the process. So definitely want to hear that foresight that was required, and if you went ahead and got another contractor job, or what was the next move?
Yeah, so I was talking to one of my friends from high school who was in DECA with me as well. And I was telling him, hey, I'm working on this contractor job. I really feel like it's not taking me anywhere. Do you know of any jobs? And he actually worked for a staffing company, a nationwide staffing company. And he said he really enjoyed it. And he thought I was going to do a great job considering that I had the DECA background. So that was the first role I took after my contracting job. And while I loved it up front, it quickly turned into a numbers game and a sales game. And I'm not that type of person. I realized that staffing is a dog eat dog world some ways. Like, you all are recruiting on this one position, and one of you are going to get the candidate that's best suited. And whoever gets that gets the money and things of that nature. And you're measured off of quotes or quotas and different things of that nature. So I quickly found out, like, yes, while I'm finding people jobs and helping them in the time where they're either looking passively or they're aggressively looking for a new job, I could be a resource. It is very draining for me as a person to cold call all day and submit someone and they fail in the interview and then they don't get the job. So, yeah, that was my first role, being kind of a staff recruiter.
Did that help you in your process of becoming HR? Because I can see valuable opportunities. It sounds like you're even learning how to respectfully go hunt
Yeah.
for potential opportunity.
Essentially, yeah. So talent acquisition is part of HR, and being a or staffing, recruiter, you definitely gain the grind that comes with talent acquisition. We're always sourcing candidates, interviewing candidates, submitting candidates to particular requisitions. and hoping that they're selected. Talent acquisition is a little bit different because typically that means you're a part of the company versus recruiting on multiple different companies and different jobs. So it's less sales and more so we have a need here, and as a member of the company, we need you to fulfill it. So staffing definitely is a breakaway into talent acquisition, which is a huge part of HR.
Okay. What's the next role after staff recruiter?
So to be frank, so to piggyback off of what I just said about staffing, I was so expressive with my discontent with how the job that I actually got fired because I was really upset. And I say that to say, usually if somebody goes through some type of involuntary termination, that could really break you and really like shake up your soul to be like, is this even the right space, the right field, whatever. So after that, it took a couple of months. It took me a couple of months actually to find the next job. And I didn't want to just take any job, when you're involuntarily terminated or when you're fired, that could cause like a string of havoc, like actions, and you're pulling triggers too quickly or whatever the case may be. But I wanted to be very intentional. I realized that staffing was a good segue into HR, even though it wasn't necessarily deemed as, some people don't necessarily look at staffing recruiters as HR experience. Mm-hmm. So when I was looking for jobs, I came across, like kind of bumped up against this startup company in Cincinnati that's no longer in business, but they were needing an HR recruiting assistant. So the benefit of me having staffing experience and this company needing someone to help with sourcing and recruiting and interviewing and getting people through the process, I had enough experience to be able to handle that situation alone. So when I interviewed for it, it went well. I prepared well for the interview. One of the things that I always recommend people for an interview is, if you know that there's a business problem, or ask a business problem that they're looking to solve or anything of that nature, and provide some ideas of how you would go about solving it or whatever the case may be. I remember interviewing my COO. He was very bought in onto some of the ideas I had, and I was able to secure the position. So that's not always kind of like the easy. I think my way into HR with staffing background, that helped quite a bit. Mm-hmm. I know that there's been a lot of people that had a little bit more difficulties getting into HR. But if you can find kind of that link, the recruiting assistant linking to staffing made it easy for me to get into that space. So being able to get in a role that says HR recruiting assistant or a recruiting assistant for a company got me further into HR. So, yeah.
What's the traditional route? If there's a traditional route, what is the traditional route?
It is kind of the route that of, administrative first, like you do a lot of administrative tasks within HR. So helping out with, like, that could be an HR administrative assistant or a HR representative. And then that may develop into an HR coordinator, where you're coordinating, different functions of HR, or, you're handling a particular piece of HR. Then typically you'll kind of get into the realm of HR specialist or HR BP. So a specialist, or, well, they all kind of, let me say this, a HR generalist, HR BP, and an HR specialist all can kind of lump up into one, but HR BP may separate from that pack a little bit. So let me clarify, sorry. So an HR specialist and HR generalist are typically on the same level. A specialist is someone focusing on a particular area of HR, whereas a generalist is focusing on all aspects of HR. So as a generalist, I'm handling benefits, talent acquisition, employee engagement, talent management, performance management, all those different types of things. But as an HR specialist, I could focus on benefits. So that's how that goes. And then the next thing is probably an HR business partner, HR manager, that they're typically in the same realm. HR director, HR, continues to go up to the ladder until you're a CHRO or you're an HR consultant on your own. But that's typically the route.
When we're talking about HR tends to be in charge of obviously applications, resumes, all these different factors. Got to ask some of the key questions that people will really want to know, and something that you've heard me vent about, and definitely just have that conversation on camera, which is, first off, what's the deal with these resumes? HR people want the resume to look like that specific HR's desire. And I'm supposed to know what that HR person's desire is without ever actually talking to them and it not being written down anywhere. Because you personally can love my resume and had actually helped me with it. I haven't had any issues, frankly, but there have been, and I've listened to people talk about how they're frustrated where they got all this help with their resume, only to turn around and the person didn't like the format, the way it was laid out, and not even the wording. It was more about the aesthetics that turned them off. Because obviously, with so many resumes coming your way, so many applications coming your way, we got a split second, and to only grab your attention, maybe 5-10 seconds, just you looking at it and reading through it really quickly.
Yeah.
What's the deal with that? Like, what? How is this fair? Because it absolutely does not seem or feel fair at all.
I mean, so it is a little bit difficult. The biggest thing about resumes is that you have to know the buzzwords that are important for your role. Mm-hmm. If you guys think we are reading resumes from start to finish, verbatim, by word, I'm telling you now, we don't. Half the time, if a person is submitted to our team from talent acquisition, so talent acquisition, is HR, but for bigger companies, there's typically a talent acquisition team that does the sourcing and recruiting and screening of candidates, and then they send it to the HR manager. Typically with that information is paired with that phone screen information, which typically that's a lot of where our attention is like, how did they already answer some of the questions we're going to be looking to ask? But from a talent acquisition team or somebody who is responsible for reviewing resumes, is incredibly important to look at the buzzwords. It's also incredibly important for people to understand when you're applying to a job, like your resume warrants sometimes some pivoting so it can cater to that particular job. Is very, when I was looking for a job actually, and kind of looking at my career, you'll see that I bounced from an HR manager to a specialist role. I had a couple of different resumes. I had a resume that was catering to HR leadership roles. And then I had a resume catering to more specialized roles, different things of that nature. And when I came across a job, I would say, oh, this job needs somebody who has more experience in this and that. So I'm going to move this bullet point up, move these other bullet points that I deem being necessary for them to know I have experience in down. And, make sure everything is visually, like almost immediately within my jobs and in the bullet point positioning. I think a lot of people miss out on being selected because they don't really customize their resume with the job. So I think that that's something that needs to happen. But I don't think there's a particular HR aesthetic that is out there of like, we all need it to look this way. It's mainly including the buzzwords and including the information that the type of information that will credit whether you'll be a good fit for this position. Because we don't have a lot of time to be looking at a piece of paper and deciphering that on our own. So you got to tell the story quickly.
All right. We were at a discussion. I'm pretty sure you were there. And there were other HRs. You weren't on this panel. There were several other HR on this panel years ago at the Urban League.
Yep.
One of the ladies gave a secret out, and I'm just curious to know if you all are actually looking for this secret that she gave out that people do, and are you penalizing when somebody does it? So what is this secret that she gave out? As you mentioned, keywords. And she mentioned that people, what they called on was like, in order to get your resume to the top is you have to have these keywords that some of you all are putting in your system is searching for in the resume to bring those resumes to the top. And what she said was people were taking the entire job description, whiting it out, putting it in the most smallest font possible, and then putting it in the margin of the resume. So when you had the digital version of it and you search for it, it always showed up. And if you highlighted everything, try to turn everything black to find it, it doesn't show up because it's in the margin, and you have to know to look in the margin to find it. First off, are you all hip to this? Second, are we getting penalized for it? And is this not creative? The same.
I mean, well, when she said that, I think I was there when that happened, and I was like, "Oh, that's very smart." I guarantee you, none of my teammates are looking for that. I think, you know, I don't think it's a bad idea at all. Like, I think if you need that to happen, then sure. But listen, if you have the experience and you have the background, the education that's needed for the role, I don't think you need to take that extra step. I think that step would be taken if you're like applying for a role that just may be outside of your league and you want to be somebody to consider you. I just don't think it's that necessary.
I hear you, but you're also so accustomed to being HR that I'm wondering how much of this side you remember. Obviously, you have to get interviewed in order to become HR and go through your own processes. But for me, it's like sometimes you just need to be able to get to the table. I mean, I ran the hurdles in college. You can have 3 people in that heat that are just breaking records the entire season, and you could be number 5, and you're not even on the board to place top 3. It takes one person in between those 3 people to fall over the hurdles wildly and trip those other 2 up, and now you're in the game. And now you're actually on the board top 2, if not 1. And the thing is you just need the opportunity to be at the table. You never know what's going to happen, because those other people who may have beautiful resumes, had great experience, might interview terribly. I'm just trying to get to the table. My information on the resume might be amazing, but I didn't put the keywords in there. I used a synonym for the keywords you were looking for, and I didn't get generated in there. And now I did, because I don't know if it counts as cheating, but I did what I had to do. Just curious about your feedback. I had to lay it out like that.
Well, yeah. So I literally just switched jobs last year, so I'm very familiar with it. I think there to get at the table, like I think it's bigger than just copying the job description and putting it in a margin. Like you literally need to make connections, because connection is what's going to get you in, not just at the table, not just in the room. It's going to get you to the other rooms and to the other tables and to, some other aspects. So like, if you're really passionate about switching jobs and passionate about a particular field, a particular company, a particular whatever, this starts way before you draft up your resume. It starts way before you start submitting your resume into a machine, because yes, your resume can be pulled because that job description's in that margin. But if your resume content still is not hitting, is not making the whistles turn, or the whistles blow, or the wheels turn for me to even interview you, all of that's for naught. So it's like, either you really have the experience and education that you need to be successful in this role, and that person sees it, or they just don't. I think, you getting yourself at the table takes more than that. I mean, I think you just
Obviously,
really
there's way more to the table.
I know, you know.
But you also know me and HR. It's just this. I mean, pre-position HR. Like, I don't mind HR while you're in there. They make sure everything keep it smooth, and also help with that paycheck, as well as obviously your boss does that too. But I'm just saying, I have no problem with HR once you're in the building. It's the getting in the building part that stresses me out when it comes to y'all, because it just, we can be going on about this all day. Nonetheless, your experiences in HR, moving on from that company. I remember that company because that company was the one when you actually were first coming into the Urban League. So I remember you and my guy who both worked there. So I absolutely know exactly which company you're talking about. And I remember you enjoying it at the time. Moving to the next position. What was that process like? What was the thought process behind it?
So that was another involuntary termination. I didn't get fired. My position, I guess, is deemed potentially, no, it's involuntary. My position was eliminated. So here I am again, like kind of shocked with this aspect of I don't have a job. I need to figure out my next move. Um, and it took a while again of just like trying to find the right job, make the next move make sense. So I had to take on another contractor position or contracting position because I got bills at this point. And it was a more administrative, again, another administrative contracting position, but for a great company, a big company here in Cincinnati. So I took it on. And then after that, I was called by a recruiter. I remember like it was yesterday. I was called by a recruiter while I was down in Florida on my vacation. And they were like, hey, we have an HR manager role for a nonprofit in Cincinnati. Would you be interested? I'm like, I don't think I'm qualified for an HR or a manager role. I just had my HR recruiting assistant. I had or HR journalist, because that role kind of expanded to an HR journalist role. But I was there for about a year and a half. And then prior to that, I was at the staffing company for about a year and a couple months. So ranking all that up, I had just about maybe 3 years of staffing and HR experience. And when you think about HR manager role, that means that they are managing aspects of HR, which kind of freaks me out. But talking to the team and where the organization was at that time, I realized that there were some things that I've had experience from different positions prior that I could bring forth and kind of, expand their horizons as it pertains to HR. So I shockingly got that job. I was so shocked. Actually, at first, I didn't get the job. Somebody else got the job. A nonprofit HR person started the job, but she didn't continue. She left like the first day.
What? She just started a job and was like, nah, I'm good. I'm gonna just.
She probably knew what we were walking into. And it's not chaotic, but she just knew that there was probably a lot of advancements that had to happen, and maybe she just wasn't in that part of her career. So then they called me back and said, "Hey, they actually want you. You were the runner up." So I accepted that job. I was there for about 3.5 years. Like that was my longest standing job. And it was more than just being an HR manager. I was basically the HR leader. So there was nobody over me that knew about HR. My boss knew aspects of it, but there was no control over how things were going to happen. Like it was just my kind of say and his approval of what I was doing. So it was a lot of like freedom in that aspect, but it was a great, huge learning experience for me. So.
I just want to run back to something you said. Did you actually tell them, I don't think I'm qualified for this?
I told the recruiter that. I didn't tell.
I caught that part, but did you actually told her that?
Yeah, because the reality, so when you're dealing with staffing recruiters, they want you to get the job just as probably more than you want to get the job. Because if I as a staffing recruiter get you into this place, I get paid additional from what my base salary. So, okay. Even if I'm telling her this, it's me keeping transparency of like, this is what they're asking for the job. And this is the experience that I have. And I don't necessarily think I'm meeting. And the recruiter said, well, let's just, have a conversation. They have interest in your background. So let's just have the conversation. But I'm huge on being transparent of what you do and what you don't know. Like I would never try to fake the funk of anything especially when it comes to work, because you are going to get figured out. It's going to get weed out what you do and what you don't know. So I just wanted to be honest with her. When I looked at the position, I was like, I don't know about that. That's a lot. But
did you receive training once you went to this role to help you become stronger at HR?
I did. I got some external training, but being in HR, like, it's ever changing, ever moving laws, laws.
And I
So
was gonna get there because I would say there's extra stuff where it's not just taking on the job. It's like you have to understand laws as well. So I definitely want you to talk about that.
yeah, like I mean, training is, you got to constantly stay in tune with what's going on in the HR world, or you could literally uh, be sued, you could be charged, you could go to jail if you mishandle or represent an organization. Um, there's a lot of protected classes and things of that nature. So you really need to be wise with, how you move in that space. But training and with that particular role, I did do some external training, but a lot of it was just me kind of going in there and figuring out what needs to happen, what I can impact, and if I can't impact it, what can we do to help with that situation? But it was a lot of just me kind of self assessing and figuring out what we need to do. So
As for the laws that you just mentioned, how do you end up memorizing that, or do you just? Well, no, I've had enough interviews to know that they did not come in there with a handbook in front of them. Don't say this. Don't ask them their age. Don't ask them their race. Don't ask them their gender. Don't ask these questions about do they have kids. Don't ask, these are some of the questions I know that you all can't ask, right?
Right.
And how do you memorize this? Where's this book?
Well, I mean,
training.
Well, just from the interview perspective, I think that that's fairly easy to remember because it's I don't need to ask you anything outside of the job. So your medical background, I don't need to know that. Your disability, I don't need to know that. I don't need to know if you have kids. I don't need to know any of this situation. I need to know if you could do the job. So logically, it means my question should pertain to that. Your personal life, while if you become my teammate, maybe that be something that I care about. And as hard, this may sound harsh, but it's true. I care more about what you're able to do for my company and for this role versus me understanding you, you as a personally, as a person, I want to understand you as the professional that I'm trying to hire. So those questions, once you read through the law and it's oh, I can't ask these questions, it makes great sense why you can't. So then it's very easy for you not to do it. It would be difficult if they're oh, you can ask about these couple of years of experiences, but you can't ask about that, or you can't ask about whether they led someone or what. Now that's getting into the complexities of that's getting into me asking questions about the role versus this person and personal aspects. So it's pretty easy, and a lot of the roles are pretty easy in that way too. It's not hard, not a roles. A lot of the laws are kind of easy to understand because they make sense. It's just equity of what we're able to do and what we should be doing.
As a woman in HR, I would love to hear your feedback, your thought process. If you've seen, you don't have to necessarily say if you've seen something, but through the conversations you've had with peers, what have you found to have been some of the factors that play a role in the income inequality for women in just a gender conversation? And I'm asking you that because you just talked about the questions you can't ask, but nonetheless, these are things that some things you can see, I can tell, or at least I can assume that I perceive you and your pronoun is he or she or whatnot like that. So what have you found through conversations or whatnot that has potentially caused that continuous
the gap?
Yep.
So one of the things is not to place the ownership on women, but one of the things that has been data proven is that men are more prone to negotiate their salary and ask for what they feel they deserve. Women are less prone to have those types of conversations, which I think is probably the biggest miss. If we shoot out a salary, you take it, we're not going to be I want you to negotiate that salary because you deserve more. I mean, you would hope that that's the case, but it's hey, if that works for you, and that was below what we were anticipating on paying for someone, then win for you and win for us. We're all happy. But I think, negotiation skills from, for women is something that it's getting better, but it is, for the longest time, it was horrible. As far as like from companies perspective, there definitely are, some biases that kind of get in the way of, some people may think who may offer, and these aren't stories that I've heard personally, but just maybe from my perspective, if an HR manager has two candidates and one's a guy and one is a girl, and they're wanting to bring both of them on, there may be proneness to be, the idea of the guy's going to work harder, that he's going to be a better fit, whatever the case may be. Like a lot of this kind of happens in sales roles too, because sales is a male dominated role. There may be that unconscious bias of like, I need to offer him this high because one, he's going to probably negotiate, so he's going to shoot as high. So let me just go into it high with him. And two, he may be able to reduce. He may be able to close more deals. We may be able to do a lot more, work with him and have more successful. So there definitely are hiring managers who unconsciously do things of that nature, which causes even more that furthering of the gap. But I will say there are, like, for example, my company, even my previous companies, there are a lot of companies intentional with closing that gap. So, I think we've recognized that it's an issue. And I think now there's a lot of work there's a lot of work being done to ensure that there's equity in that space.
Yeah. Being proactive and recognizing, because I've heard that feedback a couple times. I've even heard it at conference by our former VP. She was talking about how she recognized she had put herself in a tough position. She had loved her job, but she recognized she didn't negotiate. And by not negotiating, she missed out on the real salary that she could have potentially had. But she did also mention, I think later on, she ended up going on and get another job. She learned from her errors and ended up, boom, getting a better paying job. So being proactive and talking about negotiating. Can you, no names, obvious, no jobs, and please don't give a timetable so you can tell the most honest answer. What was the most impressive experience that you've had? Like, what was the best experience you've had when it came to negotiating? You thought back like, wow, that guy or that gal was really doing a thing and they clearly won. Do you have any memories of potential tactics that someone may have done or what they did to win that negotiation?
So now, like my most recent years, I haven't really had a lot of experience with negotiation of people, I think. But what I have seen people able to get out of their negotiation of like sign-on bonuses, increase of PTO accruals, waiving of this or whatever, this, that, or third, the higher salary, of course, all of those different types of things. It's very interesting how people create this negotiation package. Like it's not just your salary. Like you could ask for more PTO. You could ask for a sign-on bonus. You could ask for your bonus, yearly bonus, annual bonus to be a higher percentage. These are things that you can do that doesn't necessarily always have to just hit the salary. So I think I'm always impressed when I see multiple things hitting, like somebody's salary is probably higher than another person we just hired because you see that they did a negotiation, plus they have a sign-on bonus, plus their bonus annually is something different, and they negotiated higher PTO. Those types of negotiation packages that I see are highly impressive because I think a lot of people are narrow-minded and thinking of negotiation is strictly for your salary. And you really could be on a winning streak if you even just negotiate your bonus percentage, or if you negotiate a sign-on bonus or a relocation package. I just think it's impressive. So I think that it's a learning curve that I have even as an HR professional, because a lot of us are just appreciative of the opportunity. Like I'm just appreciative that you consider me. I'm appreciative that I got the job. I'm appreciative of this experience, but when you really start to do some self-reflection of like, what have I done in my past jobs? What kind of changes, contributions have I been able to do there? And do research to support like where you are in your career. You could definitely start drafting up in your mind. Like, I feel like I may be worth this area in this space. Like, you understand salaries and different things of that nature within your skill set. So see where you rank to yourself. It may not be the same that the company ranks you as, but the least you can do is try by advocating for yourself in that conversation. The most they could do is say no. It's highly unlikely that they're going to rescind the offer because you said, hey, can I have an increase, or can I have a $10,000 sign-on bonus? They're not going to rescind it. They're just going to be like, oh, that's not budgeted for this position. Are you still interested in the role? Oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. It's not as hard, and especially since we're virtual, sending an email is less, like less nerve-wracking than being on the phone with someone and saying, can you give me this and that? So yeah.
Is there, and this answer might be based off of position, is there a certain amount that is unreasonable to go above when we're in the process of negotiating?
I think you need to be realistic with your where you are, but I've seen VPs able to negotiate very high dollar signs and percentages in my previous companies. When I was part of that process, I don't think like, obviously nobody's going to negotiate for a $50,000 position. Yeah, I want a 1 million sign-on bonus. Like, be realistic. But at the same time, it's like, I don't think there's a cap. If the company wants you, they will get you if they want you good enough and they have the budget to support you, which typically they do. And if you are great in your role, then you have a responsibility to yourself to shoot your shot, whatever that shot looks like.
Yeah. I'm really happy that you also pointed out the other factors that people don't think about in a negotiation, which is the sign-on bonus. We're talking about also just a regular bonus. Yep. We're talking about vacation time. You told me I'm only getting 10 days. I said, give me another 5.
Yep.
And that could potentially negotiate. In my industry, you have car allowances, gas cards. There's a lot of different things that you could potentially negotiate. And I think that because people are so focused on the salary, they miss that. Like, if if you're driving a truck in construction, you're driving a truck, your truck the gas is getting ate up, it's eating $200 a month. Add on the actual maintenance, add on the hundreds of dollars it costs just for one tire. Asking for more money, I could just ask you to cover the car, and now I get to keep how much. That's immediately saving $200, $300, $400 that I could be spending on this car, this truck every single month, just by having you pay that. And it's like, that is a silent raise that you may not even realize that you got, and you don't have to deal with extra taxes. Like, they're just giving you that money, and that's covered. So I think that is a really great point, and I'm glad you brought that up. Trying to stay on and continue up the.
So actually, the HR manager at the nonprofit was my position prior to the position I'm currently in. Mm-hmm. So my transition from there, like I mentioned, the HR manager role was more so like an HR leader role. Like, there was I was responsible for all things HR. And I started realizing I need more experience. Like, while I enjoy this role and while they enjoy me, I wasn't doing a horrible job. There were just some aspects that I'm like, I think I would enjoy this more if I just had some more experience under a more strategically sound and together HR department. So I went on a hunt for another role. Obviously I could have went into another HR role, kind of HR manager role, staying in that leadership. I was offered HR director roles, roles to still be the top person of HR, but I knew what I needed. And that's so important when people are looking for jobs, know what you need. So I came across the job that I have now, and originally my job has changed since I've started, but originally it was the HR specialist role, like focusing on talent management, engagement, and HR analytics, which these are aspects that I need to learn, especially if I want to continue to grow in the HR world into leadership. So luckily I was accepted, or I was offered the job and I accepted the position. immediately started learning a plethora of things in regards to HR and how it's done in a corporation. This was my first corporation. I've been always doing HR in a startup and then a nonprofit. So corporation is a total different ballgame. So focusing on those areas, in amazing leadership, which was important for me too. I needed somebody that was over me, that was the HR leader. Like I did not want to make the decisions, decipher what the next step was or whatever the case may be. I needed to be under someone who took that on and I could just observe and become a sponge. So that's the job I'm in now.
So talking about everything that you just said, I hear you decided to take on a position so you could learn more in order for in the future to earn more in this industry.
Yeah.
Also mentioned that this was a different type of situation from the nonprofit startup realm going into corporate.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain what that difference is? Why was it different? Is it the volume of people that you have coming your way? I mean,
well, so it's a number of things. So startup and nonprofit are kind of more similar together because there's a lot of flexibility with how things are done, because from a startup perspective, you're starting out a company. So a lot of things are just like there's nothing there. So you have to, you're in creative mode, 100% creative mode. And it's typically fun, right? Because it's like, we're in this together, we all got equity in this. So we're, we are determined to make this successful. So there's a lot of things that you have to create and kind of, be a master of so it can make sense. Nonprofit, while they may be in business for multiple years upon years, nonprofits tend to be strapped for resources and some of the structure that comes with a corporation, because corporation is funded. They put things out, it remains, it stays, it sticks. It's like pillars. They don't really sway from things that work. But nonprofit is like, we're literally forcing things to work because this is what we got. And while it's meaningful and fulfilling work, resources and tools are strapped for that. So, you tend to have to be creative in that space. Whereas corporation, the creativity is not as high because you tend to have all of these groups of people swiping away the creativity from you because they're doing that job. So like, for example, in my nonprofit, I was responsible for creating the performance management process, the review process, and what that looks like. So that's 100% my ball to have. Like I could do whatever I want with it. Whereas in my corporation, they have it all the way structured out to where this is when you talk to the person, this is what's discussed with this person. You sign here, they sign here. This is how it goes. It's during this time frame. The only freedom or creativity you have is probably how you communicate 100% the process, but the process goes like this, which, there's benefits to that, right? You don't have to stretch yourself to kind of think outside of the box or whatever the case may be. Like, you really are given literally the roadmap. All you have to do is just follow the roadmap. Whereas in nonprofit and startup, you're creating the roadmap as well. So that's the biggest difference between those.
And actually, I could see the person who loves building being frustrated with that, but I can also see the value of coming into an organization that already has systems and processes that are going to allow life to be easier. You don't have to sit here and question whether you made the right decision. This is protocol. And so this is why I did it. And I don't have to explain anything further than that because I'm HR and I can just grab the handbook and be like, well, this is what I did and this is what I said. Here's where it says to do it.
That's it.
Conversation is over. That's special. Gotta ask, because I've always wanted to know this. HR oftentimes knows what people are getting paid, at least I perceive that, and are playing a role in the negotiation. How does that work for you when you look at your salary? You know who hired you. Heck, I don't know if is that where the wall comes up maybe for HR? Can HR people see other HR people's salaries?
Yep.
So how does that conversation go with behind closed doors with other peers? Like, man, they could have got more. Man, I wish they would have did this. And more importantly, how do you see the salaries? And I don't know if you feel comfortable answering this, but I've always been curious, how do HR people feel about the salaries that they see from their peers compared to the ones they have? Because you all are humans and you want raises too.
Listen, I got bills. I got real life problems too. So I definitely want my coins. I think one of the biggest things when it comes to HR is that you have to have a level of self-discipline, confidentiality. You just have to have a level of understanding in general, right? Like the reality of it is you are going to be privy to not even just salary, but medical situations and some performance, like, when people are put on a PIP, like we're made aware of a lot of different things when it comes to people. So there's expectations for HR professionals to remain confidential. Like there's just no flexing on that.
Is there legal paperwork required for that?
It's not necessarily, I mean, like confidentiality should literally be in almost every handbook, HR handbook, or something of that nature. If you have a business, you want to make sure that people are signing off on a handbook saying confidentiality is important. And if you go out and start telling people what we do as a business or other people's information, that's lines for termination, as well as potential, again, court things and things like that. So it's not necessarily like a paperwork thing. It's just an understanding. Like you're getting into a field where you're literally going to know everything about everyone. You got people's social security, their addresses. Like you can't be crazy going into HR. But there's just that further understanding of that aspect. But you mentioned when you are able to see other HR salaries and things of that nature, it calls for you to be very realistic with yourself, So while I'm given access to all of these individuals, salaries or things of that nature, I'm understanding that this person has, I also am I have vision of their experience and their education and all the other companies that they worked for. And that plays a role too. So me coming from nonprofit, their negotiation skill may be totally different because they're coming from other corporations. So while they may be making six figures at those corporations, I'm coming from nonprofit world where I was only making 5. So like our negotiation is going to look different. Like the corporation or whatever could be offering a little bit different for, something different for me. And I'm like, yay, that is amazing because I was making XYZ over here and that's nowhere near as close to what I'm about to get offered here. But somebody else is like, I was at another corporation. I was very close to what you're offering. So my negotiation is going to be a little bit more tougher for you to get me because I'm coming from the same world. So I think it's stuff like that too. You have to have an open mind to understand that it's not personal. Not all the time, right? So some people make poor decisions. Some people should not be in leadership and be hiring managers. I'm glad I've never had to experience that and have somebody do something else unethical as it pertains to offers. But as it pertains to HR, it would be very silly for an HR hiring manager to hire HR professional and be on some mess.
Yeah.
Because we're going to see it.
Of course. All right. Well, let's go ahead and talk some money. Talking this money and going through the levels, starting with that first job. I don't believe I heard an actual salary for the first contractor position. So the contractor position, where were you?
The contractor position, I was making $22 an hour.
That's not bad.
Yeah, the staffing position, I made $33,000 base plus commission. So that means like my commission would tap out somewhere, but the more people you place into work, the higher salary. So people could be making 6 figures immediately in the recruiter seat because they place a lot of people in the office.
How are you getting paid commission off of me getting hired? Like, are they taking a cut out of my salary? Like, how are you getting A
So
commission.
what happens, what happens is if I were representing you, I would submit you to a company and say the bill rate is $60 an hour to the company, but I'm going to only pay you $32 an hour. So everything in between, the difference between 60 and 32 is going to the company, to my company. And then I'm getting a portion of that. So the staffing company is getting that portion of the bill rate, and then I'm just getting a percentage of whatever we got.
Is this residual or is this just one lump sum?
No, it's as you work. So when you work, every hour you work, I make money. So anytime, like if
Or as
somebody
long
works,
as you work there?
if you are hourly a contractor on an hourly basis, every time you work, I make money off of you working. If you don't work, I don't make money off of you working, which is why, you'll never probably see this. A recruiter would never say, oh gosh, like I really wish you would work today or work this weekend. Like they would never say that. It would just literally, like, they know that their spread or their commission will go down that week because that person didn't work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. This is the case for CEO positions, right? And see, because recruiters are usually oh, you just made a face. Like it is the case for CEO positions. They don't have ongoing. Like, is that not a lump sum? I would think that price tag.
So if I submitted you to so it's different from like a contract position versus a permanent position. If I submit you to a contract position and it's a 6-month contract, I'm getting paid off of the hours you work. If I submit you to a permanent position, I'm getting paid off of a percentage of your salary. So like there'll be a placement fee that I give that company saying, hey, we found this candidate that will be permanently your employee, but you're going to give me 5% or 10% off of the $70,000 salary this person is getting. So the company's getting a lump sum of $7,000 for finding the person.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. All right, so moving into the official HR generalist position that you had, what was that salary range?
The range. So that was the startup company. So I think the range for startups, it really it's determined by how big the startup is, how many investors are in the startup. You can really make corporation money in startups because they're well vested or funded and things of that nature. So I would say an HR generalist within a startup could make anywhere between starting for 40,000 to, I would say, maybe even 70, 75. It depends on the size. It depends on how much they're funded, things of that nature, a lot of those aspects. So, yeah.
Okay. The HR manager role that you had.
So HR manager roles could easily be in 6 figures. Again, it depends on industry. So
it's an entry though.
I'm sorry.
What was the entry for where you were?
So for nonprofit, HR manager would be anywhere between 50 to 70. So, and let me go back to HR generalist. If you're in a nonprofit, because my HR generalist role was in startup, but I guess I'll just say with the HR manager role, let me just keep moving. HR manager role with nonprofit is probably 50 to 70,000. But you see how comparable it is to the HR generalist because startup tends to have more funding. So,
So if you were that for, and it's not on your resume, so I can say this company, if you were that for Macy's or Kroger here in Cincinnati or P&G, what would an HR
manager?
Yeah.
Definitely 6 figures, easy. Immediately, probably 120, 130 starting out. If you have a lot of experience, or if it's like a senior HR manager role, like you could be at 150, 160. HR manager role. My exposure into corporation HR, it's not that I never thought that you could make 6 figures in HR, but coming from nonprofit and even a little bit of startup, I never really experienced people being that far into 6 figures as an HR professional, but you surely can get there. You could even get to the 200s, CHRO, VP of HR. So it's a lot of money in HR and a lot of security in HR because everybody needs it.
So the director position of HR that you turned down before you became the division, the diversity and talent specialist at the company you're currently at.
So that was it.
No, that would have been.
So that was a nonprofit. So I was just under 100,000 for that role.
Not
just
bad.
Under.
That's not bad.
No, but it when you think about it though, an HR director for corporation, like I said, if HR manager is like 120, 130, HR director is like closer to 200. So it's like you're doing the same type of work. You're putting yourself at the same type of risk as an HR professional because there's a lot, again, laws and things of that nature that we could individually be accounted for. But we're not getting paid that much because it's nonprofit. So I think, industry wise, you gotta, if you care more about money, you're probably going to want to be in corporation or corporate. I keep saying corporation. You be more in corporate or a well reputable startup. But if you care more about fulfillment, nonprofit obviously is where you want to be.
And the current role that you have, what would be that salary range?
So I would say it's the same as kind of the HR gyms, because like I said, I took a step back. So, between that, I can't remember what I said for the HR generalist, but I think like a specialist could be a little bit more, could also get into the six figures too, because they're focusing on particular areas. So I would say it probably would start at 60 to like 110,000.
60 to 120. 110,000. Okay. All right. Well, let's get to this part that I really have started to enjoy because I just added it to this, which is rapid questions.
Okay.
Long story short, is exactly what it sounds like. You just give a quick answer.
Okay.
Doesn't have to be long. You can keep it as concise as possible, which is preferred. So, favorite sport?
Football.
Okay. Favorite book?
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh. It's Tony Evans, Kingdom Woman.
Oh, I love Kingdom Man. It's actually all on my Instagram page. So yeah. Okay. How about favorite hobby?
Singing.
Sing, of course. If you could speak with anyone, dead or alive, not related to you, who would it be?
Not related.
Not related.
Wow. Wow. Lizzo came to mind. I have no idea why though. Yeah.
All right. Well,
I would have to add. I don't like this because I need to add context, but that was
Go ahead and add context because that was what's the context?
As she's a plus size woman and I'm a plus size woman as well, and I would be very curious. I feel like she projects two different types of people, where one is very confident, and then there's one that's very emotionally is dealing with a lot of emotional things. And I'm curious to know how she's finding the balance between that.
Okay.
But yeah, that's why.
What would your dream position be?
I would love to be the next Oprah Winfrey.
Ooh, and what does that mean? Because Oprah is Oprah. She does a lot. Are we talking about the original Oprah that put her on the main stage and was literally on stage?
I mean, let me change that. I would love to be kind of like the modern day, not modern day, but like millennial Whoopi Goldberg, because Whoopi did acting. She's hosting, on The View or The Talk or whatever. She did Broadway shows. She did this, and I have a lot of creative energy in me. And she was a singer too. Like she has all of the awards you could possibly get, or she In Sister Act.
I forgot. I didn't know I don't remember her singing a Sister Act. I remember Laura Hill still in the show, but okay, I got you.
Yeah, she did her little bits and stuff, but she, super stupid, incredibly talented. So yeah.
Okay. The change you want to see in the world, what is it?
Ugh. More consideration of people, other people.
And what does that look like?
Just more selflessness, like, just being considerate of others and being okay with people thinking different or, having opposing opinions. That's probably where I would be.
Okay. A song that represents this phase of your life.
Oh no, you don't want that. You do not want that.
Well, you give an album if that make it easier for you.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Song would be No Scrubs by TLC.
Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah.
How about and this is the last question. What's your why?
My wow. No time to prep for these questions.
I know these are the rapid questions. I don't want you to prep for these.
I know, which makes it way more organic and authentic. So I appreciate it. My why is, wow, gosh, this is a great question. I should be able to say it a little bit quicker. So what's coming to mind, I just like to say what I think that's coming to mind, but my why is because I care. Like, I care unconditionally about the well-being of people I'm connected and not connected to. So that carries into everything I do. So I care.
Your younger self, what would you tell her to speed up the process to your success?
So first of all, I love this question because it reminds me of RuPaul's Drag Race, which is one of my favorite shows. That's a question.
Ask this question in the show?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know that.
I didn't expect you to know. It just happened to be that way. But what I would tell my younger self is everybody is not going to like you, and it's totally okay. And you're going to make a lot of people uncomfortable, and that's okay too. But there's beauty in discomfort. And I feel if you are being just yourself and appreciating yourself and loving yourself for who you are, you're going to go far. Don't try to mix in with the masses. Walk your path, whatever path it may be, and be okay with it if it looks alone or whatever the case may be. But, there's a lot of that type of talk that I would have my little baby self.
There's only one part that I would want to change in what you said, because I know a lot of people like you, and I think that people say this and they catch the way it is worded. I pay attention to the wording. You said everybody's not gonna like you. Yeah, many people ain't gonna like you. Everybody sounds like everybody that comes encounter with you is like, God, I don't like her.
All right. And
yeah,
I'm not even that type of girl.
Yeah. You're not that person. So when you said I would tell her everybody ain't gonna like you, Jesus Christ, that is something to look forward to. So I would change that one part in that sentence, but I got you. Okay.
That's true. All
right. Well, in closing, do you have any final thoughts that you may want to share with our audience about your position or anything that you said today? Or even anything that you think that you didn't get to say?
Yeah. So, I mean, just a couple of things. First and foremost, I love this platform, this format. I love what you're doing. I think this is great. So great job, Mario.
Appreciate it.
Secondly, if anybody is interested in HR and it's getting complicated or it seems complicated, don't lose hope or faith in it. It is a really rewarding field. It is not for the faint, though. You will, if you think about it, have to terminate people, which is, very hard to do. but there's a lot of rewarding of like hiring people and changing lives and things of that nature. So keep going at it. You'll eventually get that breakthrough. And then give us a break. I think a lot of people think that we are just like these prunes, but typically your HR departments are probably the most lit department in your company. I guarantee it. Like we just do better with keeping it on the low, but we literally want y'all to have a good experience. It's not to be crazy, anal over policies and things of that nature. We literally want not only you to have a great experience, but a fun experience and a safe experience. So if you can understand that that's our job, that's our desire, and that's what we do on a day-to-day basis, then you would truly appreciate us a little bit more or a little bit differently. So that's all I got to say. It's a great career though.
And you're right. I could absolutely see you all being the lit department, primarily because if I had to guess, you all aren't worried about HR.
Right. We ain't got nobody looking at. We gonna tell on each other.
Well, my takeaway from this conversation is really learn how to learn what you want to learn. If you want to grow in this industry, you're going to have to know yourself. That was one of the things you said, was tell yourself the truth and tell the truth. They want you to have this position and you want it as well. So if you know what you want, ask for what you want. And if you want to be a type of person, do what it takes to become that type of person.
Yeah.
I mean, even right now, you said you've taken a step backwards, but the foresight to recognize, I've taken a step backwards financially and I chose to, and you acknowledge the position that you could have taken that would have paid you more. But the catch is your step backwards allows you to gain all this information, and you have the foresight to know that corporate and all these other organizations are going to essentially allow you to recoup all that money later on once an opportunity comes about higher up, whether in your company or you're recruited out of your company.
Well, and even just my step back, I didn't necessarily take a step back financially. Like everything literally fell into place for me to grow. So you just have to not get so committed to a particular way it's going to go. Get committed to the end goal, not the process of to get there is fun and things like that, but it may change and look different. So don't get so chained to what it looks like. Get chained to what you want to, where you want to be. So
the power of vision allows you to know where you want to go and allows you to know what road to take. No road is the wrong road. It's just not the road for you. And that's something I really appreciate about this conversation. Thank you so much for this time. I really do appreciate you sharing so much of your brain and your experiences and your life with our audience. And I hope you all got something from it. And like that, so it is.
Bye.
Oh, Jesus.